everybody, welcome back to Auto Anorak. Today we're going to be talking about Ferraris because, as I'm sure many of you guys have also been doing, I've been watching the new series of CarTrek, and as I'm sure many of you guys have also been doing, right after watching the episodes, I've been looking up what cheap Ferraris I can buy. Of course, looking at the 599s, 456s, and even some of the older 308s, just like the cars in CarTrek. But then I decided to go and have a look at some of the other old Ferraris that you can get, and I thought I'd share some of those cars with you all today. So let's get into it. 7 cheap Ferraris that you can buy for under £50,000.
It's Ferrari time!
Of course, you'll have seen the title and you'll notice that it's not $40,000 like the budget on CarTrek, but also you can't actually buy a working Ferrari for that amount of money. The cars in CarTrek all had bills, like Freddy's car had a $12,000 bill, and Ed's, of course, I mean, his wasn't even in budget anyway, and neither was Tyler's, so I think an under £50,000 budget is a good budget. Realistically, there's only one Ferrari that you can actually buy under $40,000, which is this. Indeed, the Ferrari Mondial, and isn't it a beauty? If there were a Ferrari that represented 2020, this would be it. You go in thinking that this new decade's gonna be great, new you, new decade. Just like you might go into your friend's house and he says that he's got a Ferrari and you come over all excited. You think, ooh, I can't wait to experience a properly fast car. Everyone's gonna think that you two are the coolest guys in the block. And then he pulls off the cover. 214 horsepower, a top speed that will only just about touch 140 miles an hour on the most optimistic of days, and overall body lines that bear more resemblance to a bathtub than a fire-breathing supercar from Maranello. Look, hating on the Ferrari Mondial is the easy thing to do, as I have just done, but really this car does at least serve the purpose as a tiny bit of hope that someday we may all be able to afford a car with the prancing horse badge. Personally, I think a much cooler thing to do with this car would just be to buy an old one, get the engine out of it, and then put it in something like an MX-5, and then you have like a cheap version of Ryan Turk's Toyota GT4586, a GT86 with a 458 engine. And it sounds way cooler saying that you've got a Ferrari engine in your MX-5 than owning a Ferrari Mondial. Following on from this, we've got a car that Jeremy Clarkson claimed felt like its wheels were made of wood, and is probably the least loved car out of the mainline mid-engine V8 Ferraris, the Ferrari 348. The design was a little bit too 80s for its era. The interior looked about as interesting as a fax machine, and it didn't have that same 9,000 screaming RPM as the Ferrari F355 that succeeded after it, but that's missing the point of this car. You see, Tyler Hoover loves this car. It is literally his favorite car in his entire collection out of V12 Lamborghinis, Porsches, and luxurious land yachts. It's the car for the Tyler Hoovers of the universe. People that want that Ferrari experience, they know what a proper Ferrari should feel like, and they don't want to subject themselves quite so much to the disaster that is the Ferrari Mondial, but at the same time, crucially, they don't like things to be too perfect. They like cars that don't run exactly well, that need a little bit of help. They want to drive around in a Ferrari, but they don't want it to exude tasteless wealth to the people around them. They want to enjoy an older sports car and also have something that has a little bit more character than a car that just works 100% of the time. Even though most of us would probably like that. Anyway, not everyone is all about that hoopty lifestyle, and the next car is for those people. This is the car that appears to be the most Ferrari for under £50,000, and of course it is the Ferrari 360 Modena. This is the only actual Ferrari that I probably would actually buy in real life on this list, if I had the money, of course. And the 360 is a Ferrari that retains that screaming V8 engine from the F355. But also has those sort of updated looks close to the F430. So if you're someone that's wanting to flex your Ferrari, you have something that looks a little bit more modern, and if you're someone that's an actual enthusiast that wants to drive around in this car and have a good time, you're getting something much closer to the thoroughbred Ferrari sports car driving dynamics that we all lust after. And what's more, if you're lucky, you can find one with that elusive manual gated transmission. Very hard to find these days, but boy, does it look like a lot of fun. The next car on this list is one that I used to despise the looks of. When people asked me what the worst Ferrari of all time was, I said either the Mondial or this, the 400i. But now, I think that time has actually been incredibly kind to this car. It's the GTC Lusso of its era, a cross-continental cruiser with truly awe-invoking presence in the flesh. I saw one of these at Carugati, oh gosh, 2 years ago now. Really felt like a year ago because, let's face it, last year didn't exist. And I was actually kind of blown away by it, even though it was an automatic. This is another Ferrari that I think Tyler Hoover would quite like as just a sort of wafting vehicle that you can cruise along by the coastline in. It's even got those iconic pop-up lights that we all know and love from 80s Ferraris, and the way that the exhaust pipes extrude from the back of the car is just right. It's an example of 80s excess from Ferrari, and with prices of in and around 45 grand, I'm all for it. And surprisingly, this is the last actual Ferrari on this list, albeit a Dino, the Ferrari 308 GT4. Longtime viewers of Top Gear will recognize this car from their £10,000 supercar challenge, which is a testament to just how ridiculous Ferrari prices have gone recently, as these cars are now going for what, around 40 grand in the UK currently? At the low end of the market. At the high end, I'm sure you can probably pay upwards of 80 for these things. In terms of engine and driving dynamics, this car is a very similar story to Freddy's car from CarTrek, so if you're into that, then I guess go for it. Not really much more to say about this car because in terms of looks, it just looks a bit more pedestrian than the standard Ferrari 308, although maybe it's a tiny bit more practical. It looks a bit more practical. I think it's technically a 2+2, although I don't know what that practicality is supposed to mean because yes, you might have 2 more people in the car, but that doesn't matter if you're broken down on the side of the A1. And then we move on to the 2 wild cards of the list. Firstly is the Lancia Thema 832. If your budget's under 20 grand and you're best friends with the mechanic at the local Italian auto repair shop, then this could be the perfect car to do the school run in. Beneath its understated, rather sedate looking Italian saloon exterior lies a V8 ripped straight out of a Ferrari 308. Okay, yes, you are only getting 212 horsepower, but cog down a gear, look in that rearview mirror and watch the active aero go down as you listen to this and tell me that you don't want this car. Finally is the car that I'd actually advise people to buy if they had 50 grand to spend on a Ferrari, and it is a Maserati. A Maserati Gran Turismo. Let me explain, because yeah, there's obviously some issues here. Based on Ferrari's current lineup, this may as well be a Ferrari. I know it's not, but hear me out. You see, for many years, there were rumors of Ferrari's new mid-engined V6 supercar, and also alongside that, there were rumors of Maserati's new V8 coupe. Well, lo and behold, those 2 cars were never released from those 2 manufacturers. However, Maserati ended up producing a mid-engined V6 supercar, and Ferrari ended up producing a front-engined V8 coupe. See where this has gone? So I believe Maserati's Gran Turismo replacement actually became the Roma, which is kind of crazy. So technically, the Gran Turismo is just a predecessor to the Roma. Conspiracy theories aside, this is a truly epic car. Its engine essentially comes from a Ferrari F430, however, it has a cross-plane crank opposed to Ferrari's flat plane crank. That's why the F430 has that F1 scream, and the Maserati sounds like you've just rudely awoken a cave of flame-spitting dragons. If the sound doesn't sell you in this car, then its looks will, or the fact that the rear seats in it are actually usable. And if those don't sell you in this car, then how about the fact that you can pick one up from an accredited dealer for under 30 grand? This means that with a budget of £50,000, you might actually be able to buy this thing and do things like driving it more than once a week and taking it to the shops and actually driving it, which, as we've seen from cars like Freddy's 308 GTS, is actually more of a challenge than you may initially anticipate with these cars. So yes, I am ending this video with the verdict that the best Ferrari you can buy for under £50,000 is a Maserati, and I will stand by that. Otherwise, please subscribe to this channel if you've enjoyed this video, and if you haven't, let me know why in the comments down below. But other than that, I look forward to seeing all of you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, have a great day everybody.